Hello, welcome to True Crime Lounge. This is the YouTube channel to my podcast, which you can find on YouTube and Spotify. I have a Patreon that you can go and support as well. You don't have to, but you can. I also have a merch shop that you can go and check out too. Now, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And with that being said, why don't we dive into today's episode, shall we? A few disclosures. Well, a couple actually. I do have a speech impediment. I had it ever since I can remember. And the second one is, this will probably be divided up into multiple episodes, depending on how long it is. But today, we're going to be discussing a case in which I have briefly discussed my Religion of Serial Killers series, from earlier episodes on my channel that you can go check out as well. Today we are going to be talking about Dr. Harold Shipman, aka Dr. Death, who was a British serial killer, and his methodology was poisoning. He is one of the most prolific serial killers of recorded history, with his number of victims ranging from 15 to 215 known victims. The dates in his murders range from 1974 1975 and 1977 1998, and he was found guilty of 15 murders and sentenced to life in prison by a judge who recommended he never be released on January 31st, 2000. He committed suicide by hanging himself at a cell at Wakefield Prison in West Yorkshire, January 13, 2004. At his trial, the Shipman Inquiry investigated all deaths certified by Shipman, and about 80% of his victims were women. And his youngest victim of his victims being Peter Lewis, who was 41, and much of Britain's legal structure concerning healthcare and medicine was reviewed and modified as a direct and indirect result of his crimes. The findings on September 1st, 2000, lasted for about 2 years. It is known he is the only British doctor found guilty of murdering his patients. So, born Harold Frederick Shipman in Nottingham, England, he was the second of 4 children of Vera and Harold Shipman, a lorry driver, which I actually had to look this up because I didn't know exactly what that was. I'm from Alabama, so currently living in Tennessee. But I found out that a lorry driver is a British word for truck driver, which I thought was pretty cool. I'm actually gonna use that if I ever go on Jeopardy one day. Alright. But both his parents were devout Methodists, so growing up he was particularly close with his mom. She would die of cancer when he was 17, and his death was a similar manner to what later became his signature. In the late stages of her disease, she had morphine administered at home by a doctor, and he witnessed her pain until her death in June 1963. In 1970, he would receive a scholarship to medical school and graduate from Lee School of Medicine, and he would go on to work at Pontefract General Infirmary in Yorkshire. In 1974, he took his first position as a GP at Abraham Orned in West Yorkshire. In 1975, he was caught forging prescriptions of pain medication of his own use, and this resulted in him being fined 600 pounds, and was briefly attended a drug rehab in the drug rehabilitation clinic in York. And after a brief period as a medical officer at Hartfield College in Durham. He in temporary work with a national coal board. He became GP at Donnybrook Medical Center in Greater Manchester. He continued to work as a GP throughout the 80s and even found his own surgery on Market Street in 1993, where he before he was becoming a respected member of the community. In 1983, he was reviewed on the Granada television documentary role in action on how mentally ill should be treated in the community. So, in March 1998, Dr. Linda Reynolds of Brook Surgery in Hyde, prompted by Deborah Massey for Frank Massey's son funeral for from Frank Massey and Son's funeral parlor, expressed concerns to John Pollard. So, the coroner of South Manchester District. According to the high death rate among Shipman's patients, in particular, she was concerned about the large number of cremations formed from the elderly women that he needed countersign. The suspected Shipman was either through negligence or intent killing his patients. So, the matter was brought up to the attention of the police, who were unable to find sufficient evidence to be in charge. The Shipman inquiry would go on to blame the police for assigning inexperienced officers to the case. So between April 17, 1998, when the police abandoned the investigation and Shipman's eventual arrest, he would go on to kill 3 more people. His last victim was Kathleen Grundy, a former ceremonial mayor of Hyde. That makes me think of the Hailstorm song, Mrs. Hyde. Anyway, we're not going to go on that rabbit trail. But she was found dead at her home on June 24th, 1998. Shipman was the last person to see her alive and later signed her death certificate, recording old age as the cause of death. Grundy's sister, lawyer Angela Woodruff, became concerned when solicitor Brian Burgess informed her that a will was made apparently by her mother. There's doubts about how real it is. But the will excluded her and her children, but left 300,000 €300,068 to Shipman, and Burgess told Woodruff to report it. And when the police, who began an investigation into Grundy's death, the body was exhumed and to contain traces of dopamine, often used for pain control in terminal cancer patients. Shipman was arrested September 7, 1998. The police investigated other deaths of Shipman and created a list of 15 specimens to investigate. They discovered a pattern of administering lethal overdoses, diamorphine, signing patients' death certificates, and forging medical records, indicating that they had been in poor health. Prescription for Murder is a book by journalists Brian Whittle and Gene Ritchie. It reports 2 theories on why he forged a will. One in which he wanted to be caught because his life was out of control, and the other, he planned to retire at 55 and leave the country. So during his trial and imprisonment, he presided over Mr. Justice Forbes on October 5th, 1999, and he was sorry guys. It is currently 10:56 and I've been up really early this morning, so and I've been doing schoolwork as well, so you can imagine how that goes. But so Shipman was charged with the murders of Murray West, Irene Turner, Lizzie Adams, Jean Lilly, Ivy Lamas, Muriel Grinshaw, Murray Quinn. Murray Quinn. Why does that sound like something you find in a comic book or something? Bianca Promnet, Nora Nuttall, Pamela Hillier, Maureen Ward, Winifred Miller, Joan Mellier, Kathleen Grundy, of all who died between 1995 and 1998 on October 5th, 1999. So, on January 31st, 2000, after 6 days of deliberation, the jury found Shipman guilty of killing 15 patients by lethal injection of morphine and forging the will of Kathleen Grundy. The trial judge sent him 15 consecutive life sentences and recommended that he never be released. But he also received 4 years for forging the will. 2 years later, the Home Secretary David Blunkett confirmed the judge's recommendation that Shipman never be released. Just months before the British government ministers lost their powers to set minimum terms for prisoners. On February 11, 2000, 10 days after his conviction, the General Medical Council formally struck Shipman off its register. Shipman consistently denied his guilt, disputing the scientific evidence against him. He never made any statements about his actions. His defense tried, but to have faded. To have the count of murder of Mrs. Grundy was a clear motive, was alleged and tried separately from the others, where no obvious motive was apparent. His wife Penrose apparently was in denial about his questions as well. Although many of the other cases could have been brought to court, the authorities concluded that it would be hard to have a fair trial. In a fair view of the enormous publicity surrounding the original trial, he also was given the sentences from the first trial. A further trial was unnecessary. Indeed, Shipman and Corey concluded that Shipman was probably responsible for about 250 deaths, and they suggested that he's most likely used them recreationally. Despite the prosecution of John Bulkin Adams in 1957, Dr. Leonard Alter in 1981, and Dr. Thomas Londrag in 1990, among others, Shipman, and the only doctor in the British legal history to be found guilty of killing his patients. According to historians Pamela Cullen Adams, he has also been a serial killer, potentially killing up to 165 of his patients between 1946 and 1956. And it is estimated that he may have over 450 and was not found guilty. So, that's a good comparison right there. There was no emphasis to examine the flaws of the legal system until the Shipman case. Had these issues been addressed earlier, it might have been more difficult for Shipman to commit these crimes. So, Shipman committed suicide by hanging himself in a cell in Wakefield Prison at 6:20 on January 13, 2004, on the eve of his 58th birthday. He was pronounced dead at 8:10. A prison service statement indicated that Shipman had hanged himself from the window bar of his cell using his bed sheets. Some British tabloids expressed joy at his suicide and encouraged others serial killers to follow his example. British has some dark history, I tell you that. Don't know whether to be freaked out or intrigued by it. The Sun ran a celebrity front page headline, "Ship, ship, hooray." So, some of his victims' families said they felt cheated, as that meant suicide would never give the satisfaction of Shipman's confession and answers as to why he committed these crimes. I really want to know too. But I think it has something to go back with seeing the way his mom suffered or something, but I'm not a psychologist and I'm not going to pretend to be. Trust me, I just want to get inside the mind of a serial killer. to see why. Like, why do you do what you do? Like, what led you to do what you do? Um, some of his, like, but the homes, but David Blunkett also noted that the celebration was tempting, saying, "You wake up, you receive a call telling you that Shipman had topped himself, and you think, is it too early to open the bottle?" Or you, and then discovery of everybody badly beat up that he's done it. Now I do get excited, like, especially when child pedophiles. I'm not gonna lie, I did say that, but child pedophiles, they deserve the cruelest punishment that life can give them. They really do. But again, back to the topic of today's video. In The Guardian, an article by Sir David Ramsbottom, who was the former chief inspector of the prison, suggested that the whole life sentence may be replaced by indefinite sentencing of these would be given prisoners in hope for eventual release and reduce the risk of committing suicide, as well as their management of the prison officials. His motives for suicide was never established, although it was reported that he told his probation officer that he was considered suicide so that the window could receive a National Health Service pension in lump sum. Even though he had been stripped of his own pension, his wife would receive a full NHS pension, and she would not have been entitled to it if he had died under the age of 60. So FBI profiler John Douglas asserted that the serial killers are usually obsessed with manipulation and control, and killing themselves in police custody or committing suicide by cop can be a final act of control, and Shipman had been emotional and close to tears when his refusal to take part in courses which would have encouraged him to confess his guilt led to privileges, including his opportunity to telephone his wife being removed. Privileges had been returned the week before his suicide, and additionally Primrose, who had consistently believed he was innocent, might have begun to suspect his guilt. And according to Tony Fleming, his ex-cellmate, Primrose recently wrote a letter to her ex-husband exhorting him, telling him, "Tell me everything, no matter what." So, in January 2001, Chris Craig, a senior at Yorkshire detective, was selected to lead an investigation into 22 of the West Yorkshire deaths. Following this, a report into Shipman's activities submitted in July 2002 concluded that he had at least 215 of his patients between 1975 and 1998, during which he practiced in Todmorden in West Yorkshire, in the Hyde, Greater Manchester. So Dame Janet Smith, the judge who submitted the report, admitted that many of the suspicious deaths could not have definitely ascribed to him. Most of his victims were elderly and in good health. So, in his sixth and final report on January 24, 2005, it was reported that he believed that Shipman had killed three patients that had a serious suspicion of about 4 further deaths, including that of a 4-year-old girl, and during the stage of the medical career at Pontefract General Hospital. Smith concluded that the probable number of Shipman's victims between 1971 and 1998 were 250. In total, 459 people died while under his care, but it is uncertain how many of those were Shipman's victims, as he was often the only doctor to certify a death. The inquiry also recommended changes be structured to the General Medical Council. So, they charged 6 doctors who signed cremation forms for Shipman's victims with misconduct, claiming that they should have noticed a pattern between his home visits and his patient's death. And all of these doctors felt not guilty. His widow, Primrose Shipman, was called to give evidence about 2 of the deaths during the inquiry. She maintained her husband's innocence before and after his prosecution. In October 2005, a similar hearing was held against two doctors who worked at the time site of the General Hospital in 1994, who failed to detect that Shipman had been delivering and administering grossly excessive doses of morphine. So, in a 2005 inquiry into Shipman's suicide found that it cannot have been predicted or prevented, but procedures should nonetheless be re-examined. In 2005, it came to light that he might have stolen jewelry from his victims, over 10,000 pounds worth of jewelry. And is it pounds or euros? I think it's pounds, but please don't kill me in the comments. Please don't kill me because I'm trying to make sure I get it right. Had been found in the garage in 1998 and March 2005, with Primrose Shipman pressing for it to return to her. Primrose wrote to the families of Shipman's victims asking them to identify the jewelry. Unidentified items were handed to the Assets Recovery Agency in May. In August, the investigation ended. 60 pieces were returned to Primrose Shipmans, and 33 pieces, which confirmed were not hers, were auctioned. The proceeds of the auction went to the Tameside Victim Support. And the only piece that was actually returned to the murdered patient's family was a platinum diamond ring, for which the family was able to provide a photograph, a proof for ownership. A memorial garden of Shipman's victims called the Garden of Tranquility opened up in Hyde Park on July 30th, 2005. So, let's move on to... So, with the media and the culture, Harold and Fred there we go, was a 2001 strip comic, and Viz also with serial killer Fred West extracts from the strips, subsequently merchandised as coffee mugs. Shipman, a televised dramatication of the case, was made in 2002, and it starred James Brolin. So, the case also referenced an episode of the 2003 television series Diagnosis Unknown called Deadly Medicine. I like mine better, Dr. Death, but anyway. And Shipman's activities also inspired the DAW, an episode of American TV of the Law and Order of Criminal Intent. In it, the police investigated a physician after they discovered he killed 200 of his patients. Interesting. So, I just realized I say so a lot. I also just realized that apparently my signature phrase at work is, "You're good," which, didn't really ever think about that, but here we are. As of early 2009, families of the victims of shipments are still seeking compensation for their loss for their loved ones. And it was announced that letters written to by Shipman during his prison sentence were to be sold at auction. Really? Following complaints from the victims' relatives and media, and the relatives were removed from the cell. He born the middle child of a working class family. So. But yeah. But that was the media. I'm gonna end it here, and then I have decided this will be a series, so please follow for more if you want to catch it. But come back next time, and I will be talking about the trial in his early childhood, more in detail. But thank y'all. I will try my best to get it out as soon as possible. I am in college, so I'm working on that degree. I need that degree. But I also do many jobs, so please just be patient with me, please, guys. Um, but in the meantime, you can go and check out any old episode. You can also go check out my podcast. Even if you would love to be a support, you can join my Patreon as well. You don't have to, but one of the perks is you get early access to miniseries that is set to come out, as well as season 2, and as well as merch items. Also, go check the merch shop out, guys. You might find that Christmas item you're looking for. I will see y'all next time. Y'all have a great day.